So Alan, really when you think back, what are your earliest memories of Derbyshire County Cricket Club?
The long walk through the turnstile from Nottingham Road down to the actual playing area. As a sort of 8-9-year-old boy, when you first come down, now when you look back on it, it was probably only a couple of 100 yards, but it did seem an awful long way. And of course there was an old concrete stand which was used as a tee bar in the late 50s and early 60s. So the ground was very depressing really, but still some great cricketers in those days like Les Jackson.
And what's kept you coming back for all these years?
I've just always had a great love for sport. Derby County and Derbyshire Cricket Club. During certain years, probably the 70s particularly, I didn't come down too much, but then I was asked onto the Supporters Club Committee in 1981, just following the NatWest victory, and stayed on the Supporters Club Committee for several years, and I was actually secretary for a few years.
And what are some of your highlights throughout those years?
I think one of the main highlights was the NatWest final on the 5th of September 1981. That was a tremendous day. I did a rather foolish thing actually. It was the first time I'd been to Lords. I arrived at the ground round about 9:30 in the morning, and the players were practising in the nets, and Jeff Cook was opening the batting for Northamptonshire. And the previous Sunday, Colin Tunnicliffe had dismissed him for a duck at Derby in the John Player League. And as I walked past him, I muttered to him rather unsportingly, "Hope you do as well today as you did last Sunday." And it wasn't a very wise thing to do, because Jeff Cook went on to get 111 that day. But Derbyshire managed to knock them off, and it was quite strange because I'd gone down with my best school friend to the match, and to be quite honest, I always felt Derbyshire was slightly behind the rate, and I didn't think they were going to pull it back. And when Jeff Miller and Colin Tunnicliffe managed to scramble that final single, I was convinced that they'd run out, and I'd actually slumped my head in my hands. And then people around me were just saying, we've won, and I couldn't believe it. I didn't actually see him make his ground because I was so convinced that he'd be run out. Yeah, another big highlight was a match in 1984 where we played Kent in a John Player League match, and Derbyshire were chasing 256 off 40 overs, which in those days was a massive score. And there were 142 for 8. I think it was about the 28th over, and Bob Taylor came in to join Dallas Moyer, and Dallas Moyer hit a magnificent 79 off 50 balls, and Derbyshire managed to, he was run out actually in the 39th over, Dallas Moyer, but 2 balls from the end, Bob Taylor hit Richard Ellison for 6, and Derbyshire won an amazing victory. Yeah. And
then in recent years as well, I know that you've kept your association with the club and almost left a bit of a legacy as well in the Elizabeth Flintoff Memorial Cup.
That's right, yes. Sadly I lost my wife in 1987, and she was a great, although she did come down to cricket matches with me, but she wasn't a particularly keen cricket supporter. But I wanted to remember in some way, and with the club's permission and the supporters club, I managed to purchase the Elizabeth Flintoff Memorial Cup, which was a beautiful solid silver cup, and we had that open for voting from supporters club members, but over the years the number of people voting, the supporters club hadn't a very large membership, and so in about 2006 it was suggested by Don Amott and Dave Griffin that we opened it to all members of the County Cricket Club, and from then on round about 230 to 250 people voted each season, which gave you a much broader base sort of, and it was quite amazing because nearly every year there was very, very few years where it was close. There always seemed to be a very outright winner, you know, by a clear majority. And 4 players won it twice, all Mortensen, Cole Cricken, Steve Stubbins and Michael DiVenuto. But then Wayne Madsen won it for 3 years on the trot. Obviously, as I'm now in my late 60s, I was beginning to think, well, if anything happened to me, would people know what to do with the cup? And I thought that Wayne was such a great bloke, such a marvellous cricketer and wonderful ambassador for the club. I thought, rather like the Jules Rimet trophy at football, it was probably time to retire it and hand it over. And Wayne's got the cup in his house now, which I'm very pleased about.
And you yourself, you're a life member?
I am, yes. Yeah.
What do you think this club really means to the members and the relationship they have with the players, the staff and everyone associated with the club?
I think it's a very friendly club, particularly when you look at probably more the southern counties. I think, you know, it's got a low membership. The players always seem to interact very well with the supporters. And yeah, there's been times. I think it's always been a very friendly club. There's been odd times where there hasn't been quite so much rapport probably between the people running the club and the supporters. But I'm pleased to say now, with Ryan Duckett as chief executive, that has returned, and Ryan is doing a tremendous job. And
finally, if you could sum it up in a sentence, what do you think this club means to the local community?
I think it's very important. I think it's nice that it's in the centre of Derby, but we always must remember it is Derbyshire County Cricket Club and represents the whole county.